Hello and welcome back to the What Problem Are You Solving podcast, where we believe that finding out what problem you are solving turns into what pays. We're two lean startup coaches that have a passion for quickly delivering value before you spend too much. My name is John Ruarker. I am a lean startup coach in the DC metro area.
I think that's another podcast, isn't it, John?
Old habit.
Okay.
Old habits die hard. And with me is my special friend and guest and co-host, Ty Smith.
Hello, people. How are you?
Oh, geez. Happy tonight, we're going to talk about the next step in the innovation readiness levels, where we're going through this innovation journey of how do you mature your way through utter chaos into a secure, stable, scalable business model. We've covered the innovation readiness level number 1, where you have your first business idea put on paper on a business model canvas. We've gone and started looking at all the external factors through an ecosystem surrounding it. What's going on outside of your business model that you don't have control of that you need to consider.
So what are we doing today, John?
So today, we're going to innovation readiness level 3, which is problem validation.
Yay!
Hey, we're getting through it. So in the green room, Ty and I were talking a little bit about what's the difference between validation versus verification. So for my classically trained systems engineers, in System Engineering 101, they teach you about requirements, validation, and verification, and how they're two separate things. One, validation is making sure you build the right thing, and verification is making sure you built the thing right.
That seems kind of complicated. Could you give us a little bit more about that? Because that's a lot of B words.
That is true. So in engineering, we like to spend a lot of time perfecting, polishing, making sure it's got all the bells and whistles, and making sure it satisfies all these requirements, right? Doing a lot of upfront planning to make sure that the functionality is perfect. And yet, too often, we don't spend a lot of time on making sure that anybody wants what we're building. Because we're builders. We like to build stuff. We don't care. We love tech for tech's sake, not necessarily is it something that people will buy, or in nonprofit government space will people use. So one thing I learned early on in my Agile days was Agile development, and lean startup in particular, is about 90 to 99% validating that anyone has the problem or anybody wants this solution.
Mm-hmm.
And then 1%, did you build it right? Because, one thing I like to say is you can build, the perfect left-handed screwdriver, and if all you're doing is selling it to right-handed people, you're not going to make a single sale.
Yeah, that is a problem. This idea of building it right versus building the right thing, I think really is the heart of this notion of problem validating. I've often wondered, at least the people that I work with, how do you know that you say that's a problem? What are you doing when you walk around talking to people and saying, "Oh, I know this is a problem"? We have this saying that goes, "Well, data beats disagreement." So we'll literally say, "So what data do you have? How do you know?"
Well, I just know, Ty, I know this is a great idea. Everybody wants it. They can't live without it. I know. Trust me.
Well, I get that, that everybody wants it. But most of the time, it seems that these notions of validating of understanding and validating a problem is really up to the person and their own particular heartburn that they have, that around a problem that they're trying to solve. And they get so solution locked. They get so convinced that what they have to offer is the absolute right thing, that it's almost to their detriment. That they are so focused on their solution that they really do forget that problem. The problem that if they were able to take care of that, it would be awesome. Be really awesome.
Yeah, and another thing that I like about your phrase, data beats disagreements,
Mhm.
is when you're starting off and you know it's the greatest thing. All things considered, you could be right, but right now you only have one data point yourself.
Mhm. Mhm.
Only one. It could be the greatest thing, but until you get other pieces of data outside of one data point, because a point does not a trend make.
Well, it's interesting. I'm imagining the dedicated, powerfully dedicated inventor who says, "I really got the answer," and they spend their entire lives, they spend their entire all their resources, their kids' college education, their mortgage, and all that stuff, and they build 10,000 units and get none of them sold.
And it's
None
sad.
of them.
It's true. Like we know that this happens, right? That startups fail. I mean, what they have a 20% success rate, maybe if that. So
Yeah.
so there are people that spend a lot of time, equity, and resources.
No, it's interesting. There is I think there's an organization called CB Insights that does a lot of research around this idea of startups and how startups get going. And they put out some data points that says 72% of all. So John, there goes your 80%. 72% of all startups fail. And then there's some additional research that would say of all of those that actually make that 10x valuation, it's like 0.4%. 0.4% of all the startups that make that 10x valuation. We're not even going to talk about the unicorns. The unicorns being defined as those companies that are worth $1 billion within like the first couple of years, like the Lyfts, the Ubers, and those kind. We're just talking about the ones that are really able to make something out of themselves and get somewhere. But just the ones that just make it past like that initial first sets of funds, only 72% get to that point. And so I think that you're absolutely right that without really validating the problem that you think you're trying to solve, without taking the time, the effort, and the absolute passionate focus on getting that validated, you could be headed for real trouble. You could be headed for real trouble.
Okay, Ty. So, given this context, how are you going to help me out? How are you going to get me out of my head and make sure that my problem is validated? What am I going to do next?
So there's two ideas, the same idea, but from two directions. The gentleman that actually taught us how to do this, his name is Steve Blank, and you go out and you can Google Steve. It's just a wonderfully smart guy, and we kind of trust him because he's like a 3.5-time billionaire. We've looked it up, so he's sold and or launched like 8 different companies, and he's done some fantastic work. He has this saying that goes, there is no learning, there is no validating, there is nothing that you can do that is in the building. In other words, you can't sit behind your desk and say, I think, as you tap your hands like the mad scientist, I think that this is the problem. Yeah, right. You need to get out and go talk to people. This other guy that I know said some of the same thing. Really wonderful, smart guy. I think his name is John Ruark. Yeah, you. He said there in his world there is a Japanese word called gemba. And John, gemba is what is it?
Go and see where the work is done.
So in other words, both Steve and the Japanese in the whole lean environment have figured out that in order to validate your problem, in order to understand how to go and fix it, you need to get up, get out of your house, get from behind your computer, get from behind your desk, go talk to people.
But
That's where people are. That's where your problem is. It's not the one in your head.
no, no, no. That's not going to work because I
Why
don't have
not?
it built yet, and I'm afraid to show them something.
What a perfect time to go talk to somebody before you spend too much damn money to go out and build something. Remember, 72% never make it past the first. But I got to go and I am perfectly wonderful. I got 10,000 units. I'm going to say, yeah, right. Screw that. Get up, go talk to somebody and ask them questions. Go ask them questions.
Well, okay, so then I should be selling them on my product, sell them on my idea, right? It's all marketing. This is just like marketing, right?
That's how you got into trouble in the first place.
Oh,
Trying to sell your idea. This is not about my idea validation. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about problem validation.
Well, I don't care what the problem is. I already got the solution.
Well, go ahead and do that, dummy. Go spend some money.
Right. Okay, then, smarty pants. How would you go ahead asking them what their problem is?
So I'm glad you asked that. So when you go talk to people, what you're trying to prove is not whether or not your solution, by the way, your fantasy is another way to talk about it. The thing that you've created in your head, the one that kept you up at night is right. Because as you said, John, 1 point does not make a change. That's like heartburn. I tell my sons, I got reminded by this, my youngest son last night. He said, Dad, you said 1 point is a notice, 2 point is an idea, 3 points, you're now starting to make a trend. Well, when we teach this in the class, before we suggest that before you really start investing a whole lot of money, you talk to 100 people. You talk to 100 people. That way you can begin to collect as much data as you can about what those people are really trying to do. 100 people can start to give you a sense of what is possible. You know, that famous, like, what's the art of the possible? What is possible? That's how you go and just talk to those folks.
Okay, so I'm going to go talk to people. I don't know 100 people, Ty. How am I going to get out in front of 100 different people and talk to them about this problem that I think they might have?
Well, unless you're like Ichabod Crane, a hermit or something, you have 100 people, because you've probably have to get up and go to work because you're probably not like independently wealthy because you just had an idea and you're looking for a way to kind of make some extra cash. But even if you aren't, when you don't know 100 people because you're just such a powerfully strong introvert and you just go to work with your head down and look at your shoes and don't look at other people's shoes, but you have a tendency to go out, as you have to have what we call this thing called the courage. That part of the dilemma, part of the activity of being an entrepreneur, the one who has this idea, who's out trying to create something, create a business, you're not going to be selling just to your friends and family. And so those 100 people, those people that you go and talk to are not just friends and family. Those are people that would go and spend their cash to give to you to make you money. And so the most powerful way to go find those people is to get up and start doing it, and start asking questions. And so the question, John, is what do you want to ask them, right?
Yeah,
and I'll start talking to them.
I'll add to one more thing you said too, is let's just assume you live under a rock. Then if you know at least one other person, they probably have more friends than you too. So ask them, do you have any other friends that might have this problem? And start going down that daisy chain, because you shouldn't just stop in your direct ties. You should also look for those, as they call, weak ties, your friends and their friends and friends of friends. So it's very easy to go deep that way.
Well, what's interesting is that in our introduction, John, we talk about we are two lean startup coaches. And so for those that are within this listening, that are listening to this, oh, by the way, we want to give the big ups to the people who have really started picking up the WPAYS podcast. And we want you to invite your friends and your friends' friends to come along. But anyway, the lean startup process has 3 basic pieces to it: build, measure, learn. Build, measure, learn. And one way that we kind of teach this is that the building is in terms of framing it, frame it, test it, build it. Woo, almost forgot, John. And so we started down the path of framing it, which is you're framing your business model, right? Those 9 boxes, your idea, your initial pass on that. Oh, by the way, this is circuitous. So you're doing it over and over and over until you have some point where you go, I'm onto it. Or no, not I'm onto it. My projected consumers onto it. They're willing to pay me for it. The frame it, test it is in terms of what we call customer discovery. And so, John, what you've been asking is in terms of the lean startup process is the testing. It is going out and doing customer discovery, right. Going out and having conversations and discovering not the product, but discovering the people, the customer.
Yes. And so this blew me away too. Again, being classically trained as a systems engineer, where instead of marketing, instead of pushing, instead of selling, you're actually looking to see, does anyone else have the same problem that I think I have, or that I think the solution could do? So in other words, first time you engage with this potential customers, don't talk about your solution at all. Like literally leave the conversation having not mentioned your solution at all. Why? Because all you're trying to do is to understand more about that problem. If you are trying to solve something in, a pain that someone's having regarding, I don't know, online shopping, um, don't talk about how your solution is going to come in and save the day yet. Make sure you truly, deeply want to know and understand what context, what pain they have, why is it painful, what are they doing when it's painful, what have they tried to do themselves to no avail. And what we're offering up is that once you really understand, I don't know, what problem are you solving? Sounds like the name of a great podcast. Then you can start to discover new solutions and that may arise based off of the context that you're hearing, not what you're coming in with, because you have assumptions coming in. And another thing to think about too is that you're trying to eliminate confirmation bias.
As what do you mean by that, John? What's
confirmation bias? All have confirmation bias. The easiest one is the echo chambers of Facebook, right? How I only follow my friends that have the same political views as me. I only watch the certain news channels that align to my ideology. I only hear what I want to hear. I only consume what I want to consume. And to your point, I'd rather find out on like the third or fourth potential customer that my idea sucks, or that's not a problem for me. I wouldn't pay for that at all because that doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't keep me up at night. Wouldn't you want to find that out for free? Wouldn't you want to find that out after maybe spending a day thinking about it instead of 10 years building it and betting the farm on it?
It's funny. You reminded me of two things. One, John, when we talk about this getting out and having conversations, we know we have experience with a team that we work with recently that had an opportunity to came in. We were doing some training with them and they said, "Oh, we know what we're going to do." And they went out and they had one conversation. They came back and worked with us and said, "So how many people you talk to?" One. We're like, wait. No, I'm sorry. You can't just talk to one piece. Remember,
try again.
That one is just a data point. That doesn't mean anything. And so we challenged them to go back out and have additional conversations, not building anything, although these guys knew exactly what they wanted to build. We challenged them to go back out and have a conversation. They went out and did that. They came back with 20 additional conversations. So in 2 weeks, they had 21 conversations. It literally changed the way that they thought they could do what they wanted to do. They went from, hey, they looked at us and literally put their idea and said, yeah, we can't do that. Why? Because they weren't able to do it. What they thought they wanted to do technically couldn't be done. And even if it could, the problem wasn't solved. It was not solved. It changed the way they literally thought how to solve the problem. Oh, and by the way, that team eventually were able to be picked up and acquired by another program that they were like, shoot. And they were like, yep, got it. They were done. They were done because they really focused on validating the problem to be solved in their customer, not what they thought was cute. That's too pejorative. What they thought they could, as the experts in their field, they're like, yeah, no, we know we can do this though.
So for your traditionalists, you would probably say, well, this is just requirements management, right? This is just requirements gathering. Right. Yeah, I see no problem with comparing the two. But we're not, in my experience, we don't do it at such a speed and scale of really going out and talking to, when we say talk to 100 people, like in 10 weeks or less, we mean that. Like you should be talking to at least 2 people a day, potential customers, targeted customers, not just, don't ask your mother how great she thinks her son is, because she'll probably say, it's the best son ever. So talk to someone else and talk to people that you are targeting that may actually benefit from the offer your solution will provide them. So in that sense, this is requirements engineering. It's requirements 101. but a completely different way of getting away from written documents, getting away from customer representatives, getting away from you just document it up front and never talk to the customer again until it's completely built and finished. We're not doing any of those anymore. But we don't have the time to do that, and we just can't execute and spend money because we're trying to lean out that process. We're trying to minimize the waste, the whole lean thing.
Yeah, I really am digging your idea about managing this with speed and urgency, because what do we do know about lean startup? It focuses on the speed and urgency, maximizing speed and urgency to get to what the problem that you're trying to solve. We know that if we're going to do this right, having a clear understanding of your customer's problem really pushes you through to providing services and products and solutions for them that are of greater good than what you think that you have. As a matter of fact, I would say it like this, that your problem just might be the right problem, but wouldn't it be sweeter through your interviews if you were able to create even something better? You might have an initial notion that, yes, this is an awesome product.
That's a good
People
point.
have been asking for it. But what would happen if you went out there and said, yeah, but what if? And anytime you have a but what if, you have the opportunity to create even greater value than anything that you have right now. And the only way that you could do that is by getting out and talking to people, as many people as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and another thing that a little pro tip that I figured out over the years too is when people say, "Great, when do I stop?" Right? When do I stop collecting interviews? When do I stop going out? Because I could interview this to death. I could analyze it to death. And if I'm supposed to be lean, how am I supposed to know when to start moving to the next stage in the innovation readiness level? And my quick answer is, well, what's the Pareto principle rule? What's the 80-20 rule of this? After you start listening to a few of these, so that means to get 80%, you need to interview at a bare minimum 5 people, right? So if 4 out of 5 people say they have this problem, that's 80%. And so now you can start building that up. That is a bare minimum, right? But we really want to go on much orders of scale for accuracy, for themes, and again, to eliminate confirmation bias. So if you're starting to see that 80% of the people have either the problem you're looking for or maybe a brand new problem, they might be all potential customers, but they have a different problem and all of them are saying it. Great. You've now had your first pivot where maybe the vision's the same, but I'm just going to go over and explore and be curious, be genuinely curious about what this new problem, where this is taking me. So it's hard because it's an art and a science. The science is the rigorous, going out interviewing, data collection, and all that. But knowing when to look them in the eyes, look your potential customers in the eyes, and say, "Wow, they're really not excited about this," or to your point, "Oh man, but if you could fix this, cool. Forget the old thing. Let's talk about this new thing, this other problem you're having over here." It's the wisdom to know when to shift, when to find the right problem. That once you get that validated, you're on your way.
It's interesting, this whole idea of a podcast, John, and and you and I have been kicking this around for a while, and we spend 6-7 hours together back to back asking these questions, interrogating these ideas, and I super appreciated those times. But you just taught me something today, and I appreciate it, about bias and confirmation bias. And so I want to offer up to the audience real quick. Take those two ideas and separate them by a slash. You have confirmation and you have bias. Confirmation bias in the psychology literature is about me, right? It's how I confirm my own notion of what is going on. But if you split those two ideas and have confirmation, I'm confirming my idea, the offer that I have, confirming it with people, it helps to eliminate my bias about what I think is going on. So splitting those two ideas, exactly.
Mind blown.
So if I am going out and offering up my conversation, doing the customer discovery, validating their need in the lean startup, this is the search versus the execution, which we'll get later on in the IRLs. But in the search phase, right now, the next 3, 4, and probably 5, we're going to be talking about this search. The confirmation bias that is eliminated by the conversation is I am confirming the need of the customer in the interviews and eliminating my own bias in the interviews. And so thank you. That was a great learning that I had just tonight.
Look at that. It's the beauty of a live show.
Telling you, that was great. Appreciate that.
So then as you start to gather all this data, it's going to, again, take some of the human analytical part of this, where things are not going to be always as clear and as black and white. It's not as simple as just giving them a survey and collecting all the data and putting it in an Excel spreadsheet. As much as I love spreadsheets, that you will have to make sense of what they're saying. You have to read body language when you do these interviews. And in case you haven't picked up on that, doing it face to face is 10 times more valuable than doing it over the phone or a WebEx or or a survey. Not saying those other alternatives aren't good, but being able to adapt on the fly, it's a dance. It's a song and a dance that you're having with another person, and you're reading body language. You're going where their emotions go, and if you can tune into that as you're doing your customer discovery, when you validate those problems, you are actually making that human better, right? Because you now are solving a problem they've had for a long time. So gathering all the data.
Yeah, it's interesting that you just then let me say this, and then you can put the ball on and we can close up and what Steve says is when you want to see is when their pupils dilate, they're having an emotional reaction to your offer, to the thing that you're trying to help them think about, the problem that they're discovering. He says that when you see somebody when you see them their eyeballs start to dilate, you're onto something. And you can only do that through interviewing.
In conclusion, as you start gathering all this data, you want to start looking for those themes. You want to start getting ready to find a priority list of what is the best plan of attack to get you to the next stage. Because if you truly don't understand where your customer's going, then this is one way to mitigate that risk, so that we can get into the next IRL level next week, called the prototype or low fidelity minimum viable product. Now we get to start building, but it's not what you think. And so we're gonna leave you with that teaser as we go into next week. So this is a good place to stop. Let's say goodnight for now. Ty, thanks for coming on. Any final thoughts on your end?
I'm going to sleep.
Good stuff. I'm not far behind you. Again, thanks for listening.
Thanks,
and we'll
John.
see you next week. All right.
Bye, everybody.